Was that correct?
Orange.
No.
Yeah.
But this is, okay. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Good to us. Oh, I must have last year. And it's for Rusty, so I made this some of that. She see how bored I get. She figures something. So that's what felt well. And then also,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, from multiple jobs just for one.
Yeah.
How long is this? How long is this?
The timeline is 6 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Hey, Joe. Come in.
So do I do this owner.
Good. I'm a
Correct.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I see lots of names.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure.
And I'll say it politely if you want.
We're in a spin. I know I might. Good to see you up Sunset. She's gonna be able to see. She's be faithing. Sorry.
I know.
Yeah.
So our most
Tonight. So if you need.
Oh, absolutely. Okay.
And let me know.
They're all right.
They have the option of it.
What is it? But they all just.
So.
So you're
Hey, Ori,
Oh, can I ask a favor?
what you got?
Could you open that southern door at the top of the stairs?
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
Yes, I couldn't handle it. They're so ominous. They're so ominous, yeah. Did you hear about that? So we were getting situated and I go out to my office and there's a snake in front of my office door. So unexpected. I mean, it
I was
was
guessing that.
small and yeah, and so I was worried it was gonna go in. I mean, it looked like it was coming for office hours.
Thank you, sir.
You know, but it was terrifying. I was like, oh, this is so complicated.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to
I
stuff.
don't
Just
one of our speakers.
Camera.
And
Man, it's so good out here, YouTube.
yeah. So, anyway, this is exciting. Yeah. I mean, really, it's like this big in my, no, but it really. No, it was. It did. Yeah. And it was 42 minutes. Now we get one.
How's your day going?
Pretty good. It was
So with my back, basically, what they ended up having to do was, now you have your spinal column, you got around it, like the heart vertebrae piece, and you got your like bones that come off. Well, what they do, or what happened, is basically that disc vertebrae itself is collapsing in, which is called spinal stenosis. So it's not the disc, it's the actual vertebrae. And what it does is starts pushing on the cords and does kind of weird random stuff depending on where it's at. But for the most part, what he did is he had to remove that back so that spinal column escaped back out. And then he cleaned where the nerves go out of the vertebrae. He had to clean 2 of those. Pretty bad.
It sounds like they messed around with important stuff.
Yep. I trust this doctor. I mean, honestly, if you're going to have anything done with your any joint or anything bad,
I don't do important stuff. I just do hard stuff.
yeah, I'm just going for the straight,
I just know the hard,
crazy stuff.
unimportant stuff. So what do you have to do here to start actually streaming?
So basically, if once you start Zoom up,
Does it have to be with our IPS?
no, it doesn't matter. So with Zoom, if you click here, do more, you have your option for live stream, YouTube, Facebook. There's some other options there too. Now, once you've started live streaming, you're going to get this.
And then you just pick YouTube. And
Yep.
you, like, pick where it goes, or do you have it like ready?
It goes to analytics at sfccmo.edu, which is what Mark uses. Why? But they're using that, and
That gets said a lot about that.
what's that?
That gets said a lot about that.
Why they do what they do, I don't know. But why would you use the analytics user account for your YouTube, live YouTube? And not a market.
That's the number that just tried calling me.
It's help desk.
Oh, yeah.
Is Eric? Oh, you're Eric too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is Eric too. I'm not messing with you, really.
This is not Eric 3.
Yeah. I can send you your name. I got a class in progress. Select a brand and that means you show them a touchpad over your laptop.
Okay, and where might she be?
She's on hold.
Oh, he knows exactly where she is. All right, could you assign that ticket to Ori?
First, you just try to call them.
Yeah, and Ori Rao, and then also, could you also put pen or waiting on it or on hold?
Yeah.
Just so it doesn't like flag us for not doing anything.
No problem.
I know. Have you noticed that those priority ones, they give you like 5 minutes before you actually like start getting in like the final countdown or something, It's kind of stupid because normally you, oh man, it's like 5 minutes to 10 minutes max. And of course, you're working on it before you actually get back to the ticket, right? So we always get in trouble for so But yeah, that's why I always ask that. But anyhow, all right, thanks, appreciate it. Ori's on it. All right,
Sounds good. Thanks.
have a good one. Bye.
This course challenges students in many, many ways. Students learn how to adapt messages to their audience, support their ideas, and face their fears about speech anxiety. And we started this showcase to acknowledge the work that students are doing in our Thank you. Each public speaking section this semester was asked to nominate its best speaker to represent their class. The semifinalists submitted videos of an informative or a persuasive speech, And these speeches were evaluated in 2 rounds by judges from the University of Central Missouri, Webster University, and Simpson College. 5 finalists were selected, 4 of which we will hear from tonight, as one of our finalists was unfortunately unable to attend at the last minute. It just so happens that all of our finalists are presenting informative speeches. And after we hear from our finalists, the speech and debate team has a fun, brief presentation to share, and then we'll reveal the final results. As a reminder, our first place winner will receive $125 deposited into their SFCC student account. Second place receives a $75 prize, and third place $50. I would like to thank our judges for tonight. SFCC President, Dr. Joanna Anderson. She is our 5th college president and is retiring at the end of June after serving our institution for 9 years. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Dr. Jack Rogers is a professor of speech communication and the director of forensics at UCM, where he coaches the Talking Mules speech and debate team. Recently, he was awarded the Byler Distinguished Faculty Award, which is the highest honor given to a UCM faculty member. And then we have Dr. Amanda Drake. She is one of our own SFCC faculty. Dr. Drake is an instructor of communication studies. In addition to teaching public speaking, she also teaches composition and English courses. So many thanks to each of you for taking your time and making this very tough decision. I will now turn it over to our president of the speech and debate team, Josh Copal, who will introduce our speakers this evening.
Hello. Anyways, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Brenna Fertig. And today, Brenna is a dual credit student, a graduating senior at Versailles High School, who plans to double major in political science and justice systems. Today, Brenna will inform us this evening about the Mandela Effect. Let's get a round of applause for Brenna.
Whether you've watched the movie or not, we've all heard the iconic Star Wars line when Darth Vader tells Luke Skywalker, "Luke, I am your father." But what if I told you this is not at all what he says? If you rewatch the movie or read the script, you will see that Darth Vader actually says, "No, I am your father." Despite this fact, millions of people across the globe still believe that he says, "Luke, I am your father." This is an example of the Mandela Effect, a natural phenomenon in which people in a society believe that one event occurred when in actuality another event occurred in its place. This has affected all of you in one way or another without you realizing it in your daily lives, and after this presentation, you will better understand this topic. My name is Brenna Fertig, and I have been lost in this rabbit hole of the Mandela Effect for countless years, and I have done extensive research to be able to inform you about the origins of the Mandela Effect, examples of it, and theories as to why it exists. Let's begin with the origin. The Mandela Effect was first discovered by Fiona Broome in 2009 as she was blogging about her recollections of the death of Nelson Mandela. She believed that Nelson Mandela, the former South African president, had died while serving time in prison. However, he actually served in prison for 27 years and continued to serve as South Africa's president from 1994 to 1999, and then died in 2013 due to illness. However, as people were reading her blog, they were able to remember these same events that she remembered, and they actually remember news broadcasts in which they were informing people about his death and were actually broadcasting his funeral, even though this had never happened at all. In honor of Nelson Mandela, the Mandela Effect was coined, and since then, people have been talking about different ways that they've experienced this effect. So now we're going to talk about some examples. If you ask anyone who grew up in the 1990s, they may be able to tell you about a movie called Shazam that stars Sinbad, in which he's a genie. However, this movie doesn't exist at all, and this actually surprised my parents very much, especially my father, who remembered going to the video store and renting this movie himself. Sinbad had gone out to say in Twitter on multiple occasions that this movie is not real, and he even pulled a prank on April Fools in which he released archived scenes of the movie that weren't real at all, but people were still convinced. The reason why people think that others may believe this movie is real is because during the 1990s, a movie called Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal with a similar plot, had come out, and so people tend to get the two mixed up. If you haven't watched Star Wars, then perhaps you've watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in which the evil queen says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" But actually she says, "Magic mirror on the wall." This misconception has been inspired by artists to create lyrics with the same line, and even other fairy tale movies who use this line. We take a look here. This is the Monopoly Man, and if you look at his appearance, you see that he has a top hat, a vest, and he's wearing a monocle. But if you look at all the logos, there's not a single time that he wears the monocle, despite the fact that a lot of people think he wears one. You look at the original logo and all the way up to the modern day forms, he never once wears a monocle, even though people believe so. Another iconic thing is the TV show The Flintstones and the movies. If you take a look at the title, whenever you think of how it's spelled, you think it's spelled F-L-I-N-S-T-O-N-E-S. But actually, if you look at the real title, it's Flint Stones with an extra T. But because people don't tend to emphasize the T whenever they're saying names, they tend to omit the T and think it's spelled differently. Last but not least, the last Mandela Effect example that I'm going to talk about is We're the Champions by Queen. If you think of the ending of the song, people tend to recognize it as We're the Champions of the World. But if you look at the lyrics of the original song, "Of the world" is never at the end. But because of this belief, a lot of remastered versions of the song tend to add those last three words, even though in the original, it was never there at all. Now that we've talked about some examples of the Mandela Effect, we're going to talk about 4 theories that try to explain why it exists. And the first is called confabulation, which is also known as honest lying. Whenever you create a memory in your brain, that's the only time that it's 100% accurate, and every other time that you recall it afterwards, your brain tends to fill in details because your memory starts having gaps in it. So anytime your memory has gaps, your brain has to fill it in with information that seems like it would be correct, which is why whenever your uncle's fish gets bigger and bigger, he really believes it to be bigger, even though it wasn't. This tends to increase with age and is especially common in patients with Alzheimer's and dementia, because as they start to forget things, in order for the brain not to get confused and overwhelmed, it fills it in with minor details that weren't necessarily there to begin with. The next is priming, which is also known as suggestibility. Whenever you make suggestions to a person, this influences their response and their memory. According to Medical News Today, whenever you ask someone how tall they are versus how short they are, this can cause a Mandela effect, because whenever you ask someone how tall they are, you're implying to them that you want them to be tall in the first place, so they might add a few centimeters onto their height. Whereas if you ask someone how short they are, you're already letting them know that you've accepted the fact that they're short, and so they might be more honest about their answer. Another example is whenever your mother asks if you took anything off the shelf. Because the question is so vague, you might not have any recollection of doing so. But if she makes it more specific and asks you if you took the headphones off the shelf, even if you necessarily didn't, because she's implying that she already knows you did, you're more likely to say yes. The next theory is known as incorrect recall, and this occurs when your brain omits details in your memories that are incoherent or irrelevant with your daily life. According to theconversation.com, which is a medically reviewed website, they conducted a study in which patients were asked to recall items in a psychologist's office, and they were able to talk about the everyday things such as the laptop and the bookshelf, but they weren't able to recall the picnic basket inside the office because why on earth is a picnic basket in a psychologist's office? Another example is whenever you look at hand clocks. In typical everyday life, when we write Roman numerals, a 4 is written as IV, but because it's more visually appealing, on hand clocks, they write the 4 as 4 lines. But you might not recall this because that's not how we typically write it. The last theory, but my personal favorite, is the string theory. According to verywellmind.com, which is another medically reviewed website, the string theory is a theory of quantum physics in which tiny vibrating strings connect 10 dimensions, and this creates a multiverse. And you might know the multiverse from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in which they have multiple universes. So they say whenever you have a false memory, it's created because your timeline is altering and it's colliding with other universes, and the realities are shifting. So even though in this universe, the Monopoly Man isn't wearing a monocle, perhaps in another one he is, and so you're just remembering something that happened in another universe. Let's go over what we talked about today. Today, I told you the origin of the Mandela Effect, 5 examples as to what it is, and 4 theories that try to explain its existence. So now the next time you think of a memory or recall an event, question its authenticity, because maybe the Mandela Effect has taken a hold of your brain. Thank you for listening to my speech.
Thank you, Brenna, for that amazing speech. Mandela Effect is always something really interesting to learn about. But next, let's welcome our next speaker, Braden Edison. He's a first-year student in the Digital Media Communications program. His hometown is Eugene, Missouri, and Braden will inform us today about disc golf. Welcome, Braden.
You ready? Okay. Did you know that there were over 50,000 people who signed up for the Professional Disc Golf Association back in 2019, according to discingdaily.com? But today, I will be discussing about disc golf. It's a little thing I love to do. What is disc golf, you may ask? Disc golf is a disc-flying sport similar to golf, just you throw a frisbee instead of a golf ball and then at a target. It is a fun, easy learning sport, cheap, whatnot. You can buy disc in the bags anywhere you want. Walmart, this big sporting goods. Yeah. So what we will get down into today is some of the rules and scoring in disc golf. Next is going to be what got me into disc golf. After that, what some of the pros are, and then some of the pros I looked up to, and some of the equipment I like to use. So first, some of the rules are: don't destroy any of the environment outside. Don't move your disc closer to the target. And whenever you are going up to throw on the tee pad, you want to always make a follow through and release before you step off the pad. And scoring is similar to golf, as stroke penalty. Out of bounds is counts as 2, and then it's just count straight each stroke after each throw. Next is what got me into disc golf. What got me into disc golf was a few of my friends from high school. We were one day just hanging out as friends, just chilling. A friend of mine has a private course in her backyard. She's got, I don't know, about 60 or 40 anchors. up to that. And then her father plans on adding another course next to that course. So she just kind of looked at me and my friend Jonathan, asking me what we wanted to do. And we just kind of said, we don't know. She's like, well, have you ever tried disc golf? And I was like, no, not really. I'm up to trying anything, honestly. And I looked at my friend Jonathan. I was like, you want to try it? And he goes, sure. So we went out, threw a little golf, talked a little, and we just kind of looked at each other, and we weren't that good. We weren't professionals off the spot in the first try. So we just kind of looked at each other and said, hey, why not try this and give this a try? Why not go out, see what else is there, like go out and buy more discs, get into it. And then we just, from now on there, we just was like, we've been playing since for a year now. Not only did my friends get me into disc golf, what else got me into disc golf is the outdoors. I love the beautiful scenery, the different sceneries, the way the layout of the courses are, looking at different things. I love being outdoors most of the time and doing whatnot, and seeing just different courses and just seeing how, like, what can I do to get around this tree without hitting it straight on. Next is the pros. The PDGA is the Professional Disc Golf Association. It is a non-profitable foundation that most of the professionals like to run through. And then you have the DGPT, is the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So a lot of the professionals like to run through this. They normally do that. And then to view what is live and what they're doing is on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. There are different sections you can sign up through on the PDGA. First, you have the beginners. The beginner is for 18 years and younger. It's a little cheaper. It's free, basically, for the mostly younglings. Second, you have immature. Immature is when you sign up, you get to go into tournaments around your hometown or anywhere there is, and you can earn prizes and win money. And then you have, last but not least, the professional. The professional is a little bit bigger of a step than an immature. It's normally what all the professionals are running through today. Normally, you can sign up to that and do PDGA events, get money, get more prizes, and get a little bit more cash than what you are going to earn in an amateur. Next is what the pros that got me into it. A pro that I have looked up to recently is Paul Ewelberry. He is a commentator and a professional disc golfer. Normally what he does is he'll go out on the course of the rounds, throughout the rounds, go out, throw, and then come back immediately to the office and help out, commentate on the videos that they post on YouTube. I normally like him and I look up to him because whenever he's doing the commentary, he'll like explain what disc he used, what formation he did. And normally he's just jokes around about like, yeah, I'm not that good, but you know, it's whatever. Like, he just tells us how, like, us kids or like beginners watching on there, like what to do, what like a little bit more information than what we already know. Next is some of the equipment I normally use. The equipment I like to use is the bag, the rag, and recently the rangefinder. Normally you can go out and buy a bit like a school bag, string bag, whatnot. You don't have to go expensive, crazy. I normally like to do that because I like to have more space for all my discs because all the discs do different things. So the bag normally obviously carries the disc, carries water, whatnot, whatever you need, a little bit of the ball markers, notepads, everything that you need for your beginners stuff. Next is the rag. I use a rag that I found at home, an old dirty rag. The rag is used to like clean your disc because obviously you're going to be messing around in the mud, snow, any type of weather. It's fun. I brought that. I'm so glad I invested in the rag because like I mess around in the mud all the time, and I'm always in the water, out of bounds, whatnot. I just need it on me all the times. But I found an old dirty one at home, cheap, and then we poked a hole through it and just did just latch onto my bag and carry on with my day. Recently, what I got into is the golf range finder. I spent a little bit too much money on that, $150. You could probably find a little bit expensive one, a cheaper one by going and finding a hunting range finder. What these do is you point out a certain target that you want to, click a button, shows you how far it is from you. Normally shows the slope, the wind, all this fun stuff. I didn't buy that because I had to use it for big golf for high school, so they were regulations, but I'm still figuring out how to use it all still to this day. It's so hard because I'll measure it how far it is, and it'll get me a wrong distance, and I'll use the wrong this, and I'll be like, wow, that was a lie. Or I'll normally follow what my friend does and just say, yeah, cool, you got this. But in conclusion, today I taught you a little bit about what disc golf is, some of the rules, the scoring of disc golf, what got me into disc golf, some of the pros I look up to, some of the professional leagues that they do, and then some of the equipment today. I hope all this gives you a chance to go outside, go outdoors, or join disc golf. It's such a fun, easy, loving sport. It's frustrating sometimes too. And it can be cheap, but sometimes if you like to find other discs and you see what else is to do, it'll probably be a little bit expensive. But I hope y'all enjoyed, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for your time, Braden. Now let's introduce our next speaker, Lexi Buck. Lexi is a first-year student in the Diagnostic Medical Sonography program and is from Stover. Lexi's presentation is titled Misconceptions Surrounding Grief. Let's now welcome Lexi Buck.
Take a second to think about what we're taught throughout our lives. Now, I don't mean every single subject that you've ever studied, but the core of why we learn things. This could be the academic skills for getting a job, earning the money to buy a house and a car, and the social skills to making friends and getting married. But notice how our lives revolve around getting things. Not very often are we taught how to lose something or how to cope when we lose something or someone that we love. Grief is the process of reacting to loss, and many people who go through it are often given many pieces of advice that are simply not true. Everyone around you has, is, or will go through a season of grief sometime in their life. And when we must comfort someone going through loss, we often don't know what to say or how to react. But why are we so bad at communicating common grief? And how can we better equip ourselves in the future? My name is Lexi Buck, and what inspired me to give this speech to you today was actually a tragedy that occurred last fall with the passing of my mother. All in one, I lost my only parent, the place that I called home, and ultimately my very best friend. So needless to say, I've been well acquainted with grief these last 9 months, and I'm still learning the ups and downs of it now. Which is why today I'd like to point out 3 common misconceptions about grief. The idea that there are only 5 stages to grief, that time heals all wounds, and that grief is a negative emotion. As I mention each one, I'd like to present some better alternatives with coping with loss. The first myth is the idea that there are only 5 stages to grief. Many of us have probably heard of what they are. They're fairly popular. They are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Many people think that they must go through these stages in this particular order in order to find peace and closure with their loss. After all, it's easier to assign a complicated emotion to a certain stage that has an end in sight. But why do us humans like to put such a complex event into a neat 5-step process? An article published by the Scientific American, written by psychologist Michael Shermer in 2008, summed the concept up perfectly. He wrote, "The urge to compress the complexities of life into neat and tidy stages is irresistible. We are pattern-seeking, storytelling primates trying to make sense of an often chaotic and unpredictable world." End quote. In other words, we like knowing exactly what we're doing and what comes next. The problem with the 5 stages is when someone feels as if there is something wrong with them if they don't conform. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a psychologist for the terminally ill and created the 5 stages of grief for those who were in the process of dying. So used in the correct context, the 5 stages can be helpful for those who are expecting a future loss, but they were not necessarily intended for those who have already gone through a loss. Instead, it's better to realize that any of these emotions may come and go at any time, and that's perfectly fine. So don't guilt yourself or anyone else for not being in the correct stage, since in this scenario, it doesn't really exist. The second myth that I'd like to tell you about is the idea that time heals all wounds. There's an illustration that I'd like to show you today that was first created by grief educator Lois Tonkin in a 1996 article titled "Growing Around Grief." Here we have this jar, and this represents the person shortly after a loss. And the clay in the bottom represents that amount of grief. You can see that it's pretty large, takes up a lot of space, and it's painfully unavoidable. Most people think that after some time, this is what happens. That amount of grief simply shrinks. It's easier for the person and others to simply ignore and walk around. However, this is highly inaccurate. Here's what actually happens. The amount of grief is the same size as it was before, but what's changed is that the size of the jar has grown bigger around it. Author of When Children Grieve, published in 2002, John James wrote, "Recovery from loss and the completion of emotional pain do happen within a framework of time. However, there is a world of difference between time healing a wound and a wound healing time." So in other words, you can see that time is an important element, but it is not the only thing that it takes for a person to heal. They must not wait around for time to do the job, but actively take the steps to getting to a better place in life. This is why comments such as "just give it time" can do more harm than good. A better alternative is to give the person all the time they need, but also help them in any way that you can in the healing process. The third myth that I'd like to tell you about today is the idea that grief is a negative emotion. Many people typically associate grief with the feeling of despair or extreme sadness, something that we all try to avoid. Many of us have probably seen this iconic childhood movie, Inside Out. The story follows main character Riley, and the emotions in her head are depicted as these characters here. They're all essentially trying to be in control and make Riley feel the emotion that they are. In the beginning of the movie, Joy is the star of the show, and her job is to make Riley feel happy. And on the surface, who wouldn't want to feel endless joy? But as the story progresses, the relevancy of sadness is revealed, because it's sadness that helps Riley mature, that helps her deal with the losses of moving, and that draws her family together in a way that joy never could. I highly recommend giving this film a watch because it teaches kids and adults that sadness is just as important as joy is. However, grief is wrongfully seen as the emotion of sadness.
But have you ever considered that it isn't a feeling, but rather a process for healing? Grief is not the problem that needs to be solved, but the tool that should be utilized for that person to heal. So with this new perspective, don't look at grief as simply the issue that needs to be solved as soon as possible, but rather see it, but realize that there are many painful emotions felt during grief, but it is ultimately a season for personal growth. Some of these myths I have mentioned may actually help some people. What can be harmful to one might be helpful to another. We're all different, and that's perfectly okay. I wish that I had a more pleasant topic to talk to you about today. I wish that we didn't have to go through loss, and I wish that we can hold on to the ones that we love forever. But unfortunately, we live in a broken world where we must accumulate losses throughout our lives. And this is why it's so important to me that I point out these 3 common misconceptions about grief. The idea that there are only 5 stages, that time heals all wounds, and that grief is a negative emotion. My hope is that you'll remember what I said today, take that knowledge and comfort someone going through loss, and be able to better cope with it yourselves one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. That was just simply amazing. I appreciate you telling the story about your mother. Now let's introduce our last speaker today. Hamilton, you want to come on up? Let's welcome Hamilton, everyone.
Can you all hear me? Okay, good. I'm not gonna use the mic, because I feel like I'd yell into it. I hope you all are good. My name is Hamilton Anderson, and I'm going to speak to you about the importance of annual physical examinations. There's 2 things that I'm gonna really focus on is why you should go and why people skip and all sorts of things like that. Why you should go is, it's just purely a prevention thing. Annual physical examinations help your doctor build that very important history of your life from the moment that you're born all the way until you're 18, getting into your family care doctor for the rest of your life. I'm going to start with a history of medical examinations and begin with some basic information. Development of physical examinations actually started about 3,000 years ago in Greece. Hippocrates, he identified some key factors of the body, and that kind of continued on throughout history, believing that there were certain balances that must be kept for your body to remain healthy. And once we got through the Dark Ages into more of the Enlightenment period, in 1760, Leopold Ambrager, he developed a technique called percussion, sorry. And this was basically identifying what we more go along with today, taking our height and our weight and making sure that all of our vitals were kind of following a range that made sense in the eyes of doctors at the time. This allowed for doctors to build upon that resume and start to formulate more of what we have today in modern physical health care. Why you should go: prevention. Northwest Medical Journal states annual physicals can be key in detecting and treating chronic illnesses such as depression and screening for cancers. This is incredibly important. First off, cancer affects every single one of us in this room. Everybody's been affected by it. And the key factor with cancer is catching it as early as possible. I know from my personal experience, my mom, she actually had a thyroid tumor in her head. And when it was about 5 or 6 years ago, she noticed when she was in a dark room with flashing lights that her vision became blurry. And this actually, she never had experienced anything like that. She thought it was something wrong with her contact. And throughout the next coming weeks, she had similar things happen. And she had these things continue to build on to where she had to go see an endocrinologist. And that endocrinologist found things wrong and actually she believed that she had something in her head wrong. So when she saw a neurologist, they found a tumor on her thyroid and they were able to remove it and possibly save her life. And that's the biggest thing, is preventing death from happening that shouldn't happen because of our modern medicine today. Another thing is improving our health of life, like our quality of life. It's not just about curing the diseases that can kill you. It's about making sure we're the healthiest we can be for as long as we can be. And that's by being active, by your doctor telling you if your weight and your height are kind of correlated together to being what it should be in the sense of your own body health. Why do people not go? People are afraid of what the doctor might say. And that's a true fact for many. I know myself, both my parents being doctors, I've kind of warmed up to it throughout the years, but I know many of their patients are scared and nervous when they walk in the room. But you gotta understand that it's the doctor's job to help you with your life and improve your life, to keep you healthy and keep you there with your family for as long as possible. Another thing is personal expense and insurance. Insurance is a big thing in America today, as we don't have a universal healthcare system. A lot of people don't want to deal with insurance because it's so confusing and complex to this day. And as people try to figure out how to fix it, a lot of people don't actually have insurance. So that can bring a great cost on themselves and their family members. And they don't want to put that experience upon them because they don't want to be selfish to them. And I know that my parents have told me of people that will quite literally sacrifice themselves just in order to have their family have a better life and not put a massive amount of debt after they're gone. The insurance as a whole, it's a money-making machine that has caused a lot of people to lose lives. And I feel like that's also a problem that needs to be assured. But in closing, the importance of it is that we are trying to make millions of healthy and unhealthy people live as long and as good as possible, because we can prevent today with our modern medicine, and prevention is the most important part when looking at modern physical examinations.
You wait to talk to me. All right, hello. My name is Kayla Todd. I am the Director of Forensics and Head Speech and Debate Coach here at State Fair, and I am also a communication instructor here on campus. So I am here today to introduce our speech and debate team to you. While we are tabbing the results, they are going to be doing a small performance for you. So in putting this together, what we really wanted to do was provide like a recap of our year on the speech and debate team. So the speech and debate team here at SFCC was just founded this year. So these are the two founding members of our team that you're going to get to hear from in a moment. And while they were deciding like how they could recap the year, they thought, how fun would it be to do a mock debate? So they are going to be presenting a mock debate for you over the topic, when in conflict, this house believes that competitive success is more beneficial than pedagogical endeavors. So essentially, these two are going to be debating for you whether or not it's better to win or to learn stuff. And so this will be really fun. They'll get to present that in just a second, but I also just want to give a brief caveat that they were assigned sides. So whenever they're saying anything, I told them which side they're going to be debating today. All right, so I am honored to introduce Joshua Kopal and Allison Sampson for their presentation.
It's too small. Kayla, you actually said my last name right this time. Good job. Okay, we're learning. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, bro. So one of my favorite memories from this past year, or past 5 months preparing for this year, was finally knowing when we advanced elimination rounds at a national tournament, which is something that I have only done once over computer, which doesn't even really count. It's a whole different like vibe and a whole different environment for that. So because of that experience, I stand for affirmation resolution that my coach even said herself, that this house believes that winning conflict, that competitive success is more beneficial than pedagogical endeavors. Let's first define a few things. First, this house is the state fair speech and debate team. And second is pedagogical, which is that of the method and practice of teaching. So as Kayla eloquently described herself, today I'm going to be describing to you why it's better for us to win than it is to learn. Now, let's go into the 2 main points today. And today we're going to discuss our drive towards success. First, when the team had success, we were able to work harder and saw our confidence boost. For example, after our first place finish at the study break tournament, we were pushed to even work even harder and shoot for higher goals. This win gave me the very same boost of confidence we're talking about that the very next day at the Gateway Swing, that I advanced to both elimination rounds and final rounds at my individual events. But not only this, but simply as a just new community college, we were just known as simply a new community college. After leaving this tournament, we made sure that everyone remembers our names. And my favorite moment of confidence and growth comes from my very own opponent and previous partner, Allison Sampson, who was tournament champion in the novice division IPA debate at the Gorlock, which is a national tournament. I've never seen someone's confidence grow that much faster. The reason why we were able to do better was our drive. And that drive stems from our success. An instance of this is when Allison and I advanced to our final elimination rounds at the Fire Pie National Tournament. The biggest thing for us going into that was we knew we had to go in there and, for lack of better words, debate our butts off. We knew we had to get up there and push ourselves like we never pushed ourselves before. Now, second, when the team does not have competitive success, as every team is not perfect, it drives us to do better. For example, at the Matha State Championship, where for the first time in our season, neither of us advanced into elimination rounds and debates. At first, it hit our confidence so drastically, but after those rounds, we were so pumped to go into the next tournament or even round and win. But not only this, after we didn't see success at Matha, we practiced so much harder, which led us to practice for the Pi Kappa Delta, a national tournament in Orlando. There, Allison had a 3-2 record and was very close to breaking the quarterfinals. We knew that we had a huge test set before us going into Fire Pi, but we had many practices the week of getting ready for that very same tournament. Because of our success and lack thereof, that drove us to go for gold. Thank you.
He's a bit taller than me.
We're very drastic in sizes.
December, our very first tournament. We went into this tournament with less than 2 months of training, but we came out of it with not only success, but new knowledge. During that first tournament, we learned from experience in our rounds, but also by watching others. Every round that we competed in, we took something out and learned something new. During any rounds we had off, we also went out to see what others were doing and learn from them. This trend continues through all other tournaments we went to, and also even to events outside of tournaments. For example, we helped a middle school team and helped judge high school tournaments, showing our pedagogical endeavors were more numerous and what we strive for more than just our competitive success. Today, I stand in firm negation of the resolution because our pedagogical endeavors were a prerequisite to any and all success that we had. So I'm agreeing with the affirmative definition that this house is the State Fair Community College Speech and Debate Team, and pedagogical is the method and practice of teaching. My case today has 2 main points: our growth and learning outside of rounds. First, we have our growth. We grew so much as a team and as individuals. Neither of us have ever debated on a collegiate level, and I myself have never debated on any level before joining this team. But here we stand today with the ability to debate at a collegiate level with confidence. From the very moment we joined this team, we have been taught so much and grown so much as debaters, speakers, and people. From our coach, Kayla, teaching us the basics, to having hands-on learning with practice, to even having others' teams help teach us the ropes. Every moment I spent with this team is a moment I learned something new. In local tournaments, we had a chance to apply our new knowledge, but also there were a chance to learn even more by watching others. On the speech side of things, I spent my first tournament watching rounds of persuade, duo, and prose, learning not only what these styles of speech entailed, but also learning about the moving topics being shared in these speeches. As we just saw on the informative round, people come up in any speech and debates and talk about something they're interested in, sharing that knowledge with others. In national tournaments, we had the unique chance to adapt to cultural and regional differences. This is very important in both pedagogical success, but also in our future workplaces, when we have to work with people who may not have learned doing things the way that we were taught. What we learned through debate is what will help build us in our future success. This leads me to my second point, learning outside of rounds. Outside of learning debate-specific things with the team, we also learned more about the things that we were interested in. This team was a great environment for sharing our knowledge on topics that interest us. For example, our coach Kayla has a love for plants, and whenever we talked with her outside of rounds, I learned so much about growing plants as well. Then we have time to share many things in the multitude of car rides we take traveling with the team. I love sharing about the topics I hear in my persuasive speaking rounds. Both Josh and I will share and exchange what we learned in different debates and impromptu rounds, and Kayla will give us lessons and expand our knowledge and skills during these car rides. For example, at our last national tournament, she had us practicing impromptu speaking in the car based on random things she could point out to us. We took a metaphor of stoplight traffic and made a speech about global powers. The pedagogical value of this team is great and includes not only learning new things, but also learning how to use what we already know in various situations. So for these reasons, you should find your side negative in this debate, for pedagogical endeavors being more numerous and beneficial than only a drive for competitive success. Thank you.
I have to find a slide that fits us out. This is not, I don't want to do this forever. Okay. Let's go ahead and start. So the biggest thing we're going to talk about today in this 2-minute speech is passion. Passion is what drives us to do anything. And although I like very shiny gold trophies, it's the passion that makes me go and get those trophies. It's the passion that many of us in this room feel simply just by waking up on a boring Monday morning, whether it be for class because you know you have finals next week, or be it that you have sports or a competition coming up. Every single day we wake up with some form of passion. Whether it be the speakers that came up here just a few minutes ago and told us about their stories, it's that passion to, although maybe for money or other things, it's still a passion at the end of the day. It just shows you that passion for this competitive success and passion for speech and debate is what drives us. And that passion stems from our competitive success. Not talking in the cars or going to the zoo or learning about plants. It's knowing that we can go to tournaments and have the confidence to win. It's knowing that we can go to tournaments and come back with trophies and get that gratification from people around us. That passion is stemming from our competitive success. And to have any of the things my partner Allison talks about is from having that passion. Because at the end of the day, if we didn't have that passion to go to tournaments, we wouldn't have these fun experiences. If Allison didn't have that passion to continue with this event, I would be a one-man show, and that's never fun for anyone. But not only that, the main reason why both of us are founding members of this team is because we had the passion to continue what we love to do. That led us right into our national tournament where we became national champions. It just shows at the end of the day that competitive success is very important because we keep going out and showing more and more and more. That just shows that us as people are passion driven, that our competitive success drives us to who we are. And whether it be you're winning baseball tournaments or competitions, winning a speech competition, or being a national champion in debate, at the very end of the day, we are all champions in our own way, and that comes from our passion. Thank you. Wow, you're not gonna use my timer? Okay.
No.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Thank you for that speech, and thank you all for being here today. As Side shown, Affirmative has shown, we have a lot of success this debate season. However, I have also shown we have even more chances to learn. As a team, we had a chance to visit very different places when we traveled. In Florida for Pi Kappa Delta, we went to Botanical Gardens, the Holocaust Museum, and Universal Studios. At the Botanical Gardens, we learned more about plants that barely survive as houseplants here in Missouri and how they thrive and grow to great heights in their native habitats. At the Holocaust Museum, we learned more about the tragedies of World War II, but also hope in people banding together in dangerous situations to help each other. At the back of the museum, there was also an exhibit on a man called Dale Davis and the hope he brings to the future by stopping hate just by talking to people. We are fueled by the want to learn more, not just the want to win. We go to all these different places because we want to learn more about them. I joined this team because I wanted to learn how to debate, and I stayed here because I love seeing what others have to teach me. When you vote, if you vote in your heads on what side you prefer, vote my side of the debate because learning is what being in college is all about. And every win or loss that we experience as a team is just another opportunity to learn. So thank you for being here, for listening to our debates, and for voting side negative in today's debate that pedagogical endeavors are more important than success. Thank you. And I would like to add to this, if you all are interested in speech and debates, we have an open house this Thursday, May 5th, from 2 to 4 p.m. in Gator 135. You can learn all about our debate team and just how successful we've been and how successful you could be on this team. Thank you.
Every time. Okay. So before we get to finalist rankings, there are some of you that didn't make it onto this final stage. So can we please have any of the semi-finalists in attendance this evening come down to the stage to be recognized and collect the semi-finalists? Yes, Webster, that is it. Who else should I give a round of applause? About mail-order pricing class. Didn't know that was a legal system in the United States, so it's very interesting to learn about. So if you want to order a bread, you know, talk to us. But now let's talk about the reason why everyone's here. It's the finalist results. So when I call your name, please come up to the stage and give them a round of applause. So now let's recognize finalists Hamilton Anderson, And in third place, winning $50, Braden Edison. Our second place winner, winning an award of $75, is Brenna Hurtig. And then finally, let's welcome our champion of the first ever public speaking showcase and a winner of $125, Lexi.
Our deepest gratitude again to our judges. We thank you for your time, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Rogers, and Dr. Drake. I want to congratulate all the semifinalists and finalists and thank you for your participation in the first ever State Fair Community College Public Speaking Showcase. Many thanks to all of our public speaking instructors who help prepare students. And thank you to our beautiful audience for coming and supporting our speakers and participating in our first showcase. I appreciate you all as well, and good night.